Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. There are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. O sage among kings, judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. Purport. The Vaishnavites, the devotees of the Lord, do believe, as above explained, that nothing can take place without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. He is the Supreme Director, for He confirms in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15 that He, as all-pervading Paramatma, stays in everyone's heart and keeps vigilance over all actions and witnesses all activities. The argument of the atheist that one cannot be punished for one's misdeeds unless proved before a qualified justice is refuted herein, for we accept the perpetual witness and constant companion of the living being. A living being may forget all that he might have done in his past or present life, but one must know that in the same tree of the material body, the individual soul and the Supreme Soul as Paramatma are sitting like two birds. One of them, the living being, is enjoying the fruits of the tree, whereas the Supreme Being is there to witness the activities. Therefore, the Paramatma feature, the Supreme Soul, is actually the witness of all activities of the living being. And only by his direction can the living being remember or forget what he might have done in the past. He is therefore both the all-pervading impersonal Brahman and the localized Paramatma in everyone's heart. He is the knower of all past, present and future, and nothing can be concealed from him. The devotees know this truth, and therefore they discharge their duties sincerely, without being overly anxious for rewards. Besides that, one cannot estimate the Lord's reactions, either by speculation or by scholarship. Why does He put some into difficulty and not others? He is the supreme knower of the Vedic knowledge, and thus He is the factual Vedantist. At the same time, He is the compiler of the Vedanta. No one is independent of Him, and everyone is engaged in His service in different ways. In the conditioned state, such services are rendered by the living being under the force of material nature, whereas in the liberated state, the living being is helped by the spiritual nature in the voluntary loving service of the Lord. There is no incongruity or inebriety in his actions. All are on the path of absolute truth. Bhishmadev correctly estimated the inconceivable actions of the Lord. The conclusion is, therefore, that the sufferings of the representative of religion and the representative of the earth, as present before Maharaj Parikshit, were planned to prove that Maharaj Parikshit was the ideal executive head, because he knew well how to give protection to the cows, the earth, and the brahmanas' religious principles, the two pillars of spiritual advancement. Everyone is under the full control of the Lord. He is quite correct in his action when he desires something to be done by someone, irrespective of the consideration of the particular case. Maharaj Parikshit was thus put to test for his greatness. Now let us see how he solves it by his sagacious mind. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And a very relevant and apt verse as we embark on a new year. And so a happy new year to everyone. Happy new 2021. To everyone here and to everyone watching online. It has definitely been a very interesting 2020. Unprecedented in almost every respect. All general assumptions were turned on their head. And there was a surprise at every stage. A very troublesome year for many people, but hopefully we can take some wisdom from the Bhagavatam, some wisdom from Srila Prabhupada's words, and attempt to apply it to make sense of what will come in 2021. In one sense, we start off 2021 in a similar situation to most of 2020. The virus is still here. It's still highly virulent. The conditions of the hospitals are still as bad as they were right at the start of the pandemic. So in one sense, disease-wise, nothing much has changed. Well, we have a Brexit treaty now, so that's some consolation for everyone who thought the world would end. Well, thankfully, that's something to look forward to at least. So in one sense, there is a slight change, and in another sense, there is not a change, but there is hope. At the moment, the hope is the vaccine. Hope is the vaccine. But does that adequately prepare us? This little account that I've given, does that adequately prepare us for what could appear in 2021? Because 2021, which has now started, there's a full 365 days of excitement to come in this year. And there is only one person who knows what will happen in this year. And that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. His plan is unknown to almost everyone. Even the Mahajans express great wonder at his plan. They do not express wonder that he has done something wonderful, because they expect that. The Mahajans, like Bhishma Dev, who's referred to in this purport, know that the Supreme Lord always has something wonderful up his sleeve. Wonderful if approached with the right mentality. And therefore here, two different classes of people are mentioned in this purport. Those who are devotees of the Lord, those who are aligned to the Lord's thinking, to the Lord's agenda. And then those who are not. Those who are taken care of by the material energy. Prabhupada explains that two persons exist. In the conditioned state, one type of person renders service under the force of material nature. And in the liberated stage, the living being is helped by the spiritual nature. So we've discussed how in the past, two persons with different perspectives can look at the same situation and come to a completely different conclusion and outlook. For us as aspiring devotees, this is one way that we can distinguish whether one is under the shelter of the spiritual energy or whether one is under the shelter of the material energy. For everyone in 2020 who has taken shelter of the material energy, it has been a highly troublesome year. Perhaps one full of opportunity also, for those who know how to make the most of it, materially speaking. Opportunities are there, and distresses are there. And depending on one's capability, one tries to exploit one or the other. But everyone has been surprised. All materialists have been surprised. Yet for the devotees, there is no surprise. Now you could say, did the devotees predict this? Well, the devotees didn't really need to predict this, because it is directly given in the Shastra. And when the devotees connect themselves to Shastra, they have a vision of reality which is largely accurate. The devotees know that in this world, each person gets what they are destined to receive by a destiny created by themselves, not by someone else. In each life that a person takes, one receives certain benefits, certain benedictions, and certain distasteful items as well. That is all according to the destiny that a person has created for themselves. So a devotee views the world, and he views each day as being an opportunity for the energy, for the material energy, to supply a material combination of his destiny. And a devotee who is broad-minded, as we hear the word here used was sagacious to describe Maharaj Parikshit. I don't know how many of you know the meaning of the word sagacious. But it essentially means someone who's very shrewd and far-sighted and very discerning. So that is Maharaj Parikshit's mood, his mentality. He's very discerning, very precise, very accurate. No wishy-washy thinking. He's going to penetrate right into the heart and the words that Dharma and Mother Earth have just spoken to him. And he will penetrate them and look at them with far-sighted vision. So a devotee looks at the opportunities sent every day, maybe by material nature, and he knows how to assess those, and he knows how to work with those. Each day sends an opportunity, which is not an opportunity that allows you to achieve something in this world from the perspective of a devotee. From the perspective of a materialist, there is no shortage of management gurus, inspirational speakers, this, that, and the other, who are trying to tell you to seize the opportunity of every day and to achieve your goals and to profit. Achieve your goals. Now, what goals do people have? This is New Year, so I'm sure people have spent some time thinking of goals. As the days go by, as January goes along, if the pattern of previous years is any guide, then most people's goals will have been forgotten a few days down the line, and they will have settled into their normal routine. Someone said that gyms, prior to the lockdown, would make a lot of money in this period, because the excesses of Christmas normally inspire people to go to the gym and lose weight and become fit and healthy. So therefore, gyms sign up people to annual memberships at a discount price, maybe even 50% off, knowing full well that after at most the first 2-3 weeks or 1 month, the person will never go back to the gym. So it's a great business strategy. The person pays 6 months and they think they're paying for a year, but they only actually use it for 1 month. It's very clever. This is the problem with goals. And it's not so much the problem with goals, it's the problem with goals which are operated with an indeterminate mind. Now, if we consider goals in this world, when someone produces a goal, and especially these days it's very fashionable to have a very specific, measurable, accurate, realistic, timely goal, if you go to any of these workshops. Smart. Make sure your goals are smart. We even torment the students with writing some of these goals when they write essays in Shastra courses, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav. But these smart goals, something has to be specific, measurable, accurate, there's different versions of the A, accurate, realistic and timely, so that you can measure it. Now that is all a symptom of the mode of passion. Because where did Krishna ever say that your goal is considered to be a success if you can accurately measure its success? Where did Krishna ever say that? And where did he ever say that the results of your goal are going to appear in a timely manner, according to your timescale? Okay, for the purposes of a material, encaged living entity trying to operate in this world, they may have lots of flowcharts and diagrams and tick boxes. It is September, let's take stock. Have I achieved this goal? Tick. Done. Okay, you've ticked the box. But now what? Did you actually achieve the goal? Did achieving that goal actually help you achieve the ultimate goal of life? How do you assess whether you have achieved or progressed on the ultimate goal of life? Can you detect that by any metrics? Those in the mode of passion will say, yes. What nonsense are you speaking? Of course you can. You can detect it through your advancement, through your aversion to the material world, through all these things that are actually given in the scriptures, ways by which you can detect your process. They will say, of course you can. You can measure all these things and you can see how from 1 month to the next, from 1 year to the next, you are progressing. Well, it works up to a point until Krishna throws a double whammy into the equation. When the whole framework for us to carry out the goals and to assess the goals is turned upside down by an event, for example, the coronavirus. It could be another event. It could be a personal tragedy. It could be some disaster in the world. It could be winning the lottery. It could be some great benediction that comes. Each of these events has the potential to throw the underlying framework up in the air completely. The previous framework no longer applies. Everything is up for discussion. Recently, I think you mentioned this morning, there was an earthquake in Croatia. Well, up until the point of the earthquake, people had taken for granted that the earth was not going to move. And they had formulated a whole range of plans. Some were decorating their houses. Some were tending to their gardens. Some were going to work. Some were making money. Some were doing business. Some were doing some charity work. Yet the ground started to move. A fairly fundamental support which everyone assumes. But it moved. And along with that movement, all the plans were completely and utterly irrelevant. Does it matter what color you're going to paint your room when your room is about to crumble into pieces? Does it matter? Does it matter what plans you've made for this year that you are going to achieve and publish in the newsletter if the virus means that you can't even visit the temple? Think in a broad-minded way, sagacious. The parameters under which this world operates are not under our control. We try, as much as possible within the spirit of being the controller, to try to encapsulate the parameters. We try to define them. Companies undergo extensive risk assessments to work out what are the potential threats to my business model, what are the potential threats to the economy. And they do extensive analysis on this. One can try to manage a situation, but that is quite a different thing to being able to control it. Now, obviously, when an extreme situation like this happens, what we're discussing today is all extreme situations, earthquakes, coronavirus, disasters. These are extreme situations. But we cannot guarantee any situation the next day, the next week, the next month, or the next year. Does that mean we do absolutely nothing? Well, for some people, that may be the conclusion they come to, because they decide that the world is too troublesome, too complicated, too difficult, too unpredictable. Whatever I try to do, it is frustrated, therefore I will just give up. So many people do that. They just lose all interest, they become depressed, they give up. Sometimes people give up all interactions in the world and they retreat to the mountains, they try to live a more simple life. Or they try at least. It doesn't always work because their mind is still complicated, even though they think they like the idea of simplicity. Others look at this and use it as an impetus to become even more determined and focused. They analyze themselves. I failed in this aspect, I failed in that aspect, I failed here. What will I do next time to prevent that happening? So, there's just a few points we need to consider. And it's not any of the risks that are analyzed through this kind of exercise, nor is it any of our motives and our goals. The factors to be considered are, what is my destiny? What is the supreme will of the Lord? What is the actual method by which I will define success or even attempt to progress towards it. What is success? Now for a devotee, what is the goal? Prayojan Prabhu has reminded me. We have Sambandha, Abhideya and Prayojan. We have the linking, the relationship, the establishment of a relationship. Then we have a practice, the Abhideya. And then we have Prayojan, the goal. So for devotees, what is the goal? We have a few suggestions. To serve Krishna eternally. Okay. Any other goals? Pure devotional service? Yes. Okay, so that's like a more precisely defined version of the goal. Jiva Daya, Nama Ruchi, Vaishnav Seva. Yes?
Krishna's pleasure.
Krishna's pleasure. Now these goals are all goals that advanced experienced devotees produce. But just cast your mind back to when you were first taking little baby steps into Krishna consciousness. Think what goals you might have had what desires you might have had in your mind at that time. Jagat Priya Mataji? Chanting attentive. I mean even before you decided or you understood that chanting the rounds was worthwhile. When you came to Krishna, what were you thinking you wanted? Maybe some relief. Some relief from this material world. Maybe you wanted to go somewhere. Where did you want to go? Sorry? Some knowledge, but where did you want to go? Back home, yes. Most people have this idea that I will leave this world and go back to heaven, back to the Lord, back to the spiritual world. Isn't that a major driving factor in most people's approach to Krishna? To leave this material world and go back to the spiritual world? These are all kind of different goals. Lots of goals. So when we say as devotees, we know the goal, actually that goal modifies as we become more and more mature. We start off with something according to our level of understanding, that this world is a place of suffering and I want to get out of it. I want to go back to the spiritual world where there is no anxiety. And then in due course one engages with the process. One starts to render devotional service. And then one modifies one's ideas of what desired outcome they want. So those outcomes themselves are not as clearly defined. One may say, I want to please Krishna. Then one may have a more elaborate version, as Srinivas Prabhu has said. To please Krishna means to serve the Vaishnavas, to be merciful to the living entities, to chant the holy name with great taste. These might be little goals within that whole goal of pleasing Krishna. So you can see hopefully that out of the many, many options, you can choose something that appeals to you. And if you actually try to assess whether you have achieved any of this, what do you think the answer is going to be? If you ask a devotee, have you achieved your goals? What's the devotee going to say? An advanced devotee. There's no end to perfection. What did Prabhupada say? The reward for chanting is? More chanting. How does a devotee think about their own progress in Krishna consciousness? Sorry? That they haven't made any. That they're disappointed. An advanced devotee doesn't consider tick the goal. I served 3 Vaishnavas this year. Each day I chanted at least 1 bead, Nam with Ruchi today. Yeah, every day. I was merciful to an insect. I was very careful not to step on an insect. I was merciful to some living entity who was suffering. I put some Mahaprasad out for the sparrows to eat. Goal ticked. What does the living entity think? What does the advanced devotee think? The advanced person thinks, each of my activities were deficient. There is so much more I should do and I could do for the pleasure of the Lord. So does the goal ticking off the goal exercise become particularly useful for such a person? Because what is the goal is something that you cannot possibly define. Because the person who defines it, whether you've received it or not, is Krishna. Have you pleased Krishna? Is something that only Krishna can decide, not something you can decide. Now the spiritual master may have some insight into this, whether your activities are pleasing Krishna or not. The spiritual master may be able to convey to you some directions from Krishna in this regard. And that is useful for a devotee to progress. Am I pleasing Krishna? But the nature of the living entity is that they are eternally engaged in service to Krishna. The exchange of pleasure, the exchange of ras with Krishna is a permanent thing. It is not something that you make in a strategic plan one year and next year is another strategic plan. No, the strategy is the same, the plan is the same. To serve Krishna and to please Him. Bring pleasure to Radha and Krishna. Engage in assisting them, engage in serving them. Chant the holy name for their pleasure. All of these items are there. The ultimate person who decides whether you have succeeded in your attempt or not is Krishna. And even then it has a sort of a never-ending feel to it. The gopis are not satisfied with their service. You know, they lament that they did not serve Krishna well enough so that he left. And then they lament, will they ever see Krishna again? And Krishna is thinking, will I ever see the gopis again? I'm missing them constantly. While Krishna is in Dwarka, he's thinking of Radharani and the gopis in Vrindavan. Thinking the service, the super excellent quality of their service is something that I do not get here from the queens of Dwarka even. Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda Ki Jai. Even Krishna is not satisfied. A whole wonderful Vrindavan Leela can take place. And Krishna never thinks for a moment that's the conclusion of it. In the spiritual world, as you can see, there is no ticking off goals. It continues forever. It continues eternally. Because we are preoccupied in a mode of passion, we feel we have to keep achieving something and convincing ourselves that we're achieving something. It is actually a better long-term, mature strategy, a sagacious strategy, to realize, as Bhishma Dev does, that nothing is outside the control of the Lord. This Krishna is the controller of the time factor, and time ultimately controls all the activities that take place in this world. So we actually, in one sense, we give up the idea that we can control any outcomes. But that doesn't mean we're lazy. We are striving to please Krishna. Every day brings a new material situation. It can be a very troublesome material situation, almost guaranteed. For every single person who has lost someone this year, who has struggled in life, they know just how troublesome it is. And Krishna has not said that this will stop in 2021. It is very important for us to understand the plan of the Lord, to understand how material nature works, so that we are not surprised. A devotee is not surprised when something dreadful happens or when something wonderful happens. Both are part of the interplay of happiness and distress that is guaranteed in this world. According to what we deserve, Prahlad Maharaj says, happiness comes automatically. Whether you make an effort for it, whether you strive for it or not, he says happiness comes automatically. And similarly, whether you strive for it or not, distress comes automatically. The appearance of happiness and distress is not a matter of surprise for devotees. We might be confused and bewildered how to deal with a situation. That's fair enough, that's understandable. But a devotee never asks a category of question which is along the lines of, why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? A devotee who has a broader vision, who has understood the Shastra and is now seeing the Shastra being played out on a daily basis in the world around us, never asks the question, why on earth is this happening? Does God not know what's going on? Does he not know what to do about it? Is he incompetent? He's there standing, smiling. Why can't he deal with this problem that I have? Doesn't he get it? Well, actually, the only person who hasn't got it is us. Because have we even done the slightest calculation as to what quantity of happiness and distress we are supposed to get in this life? We go through life thinking, I am definitely due a large amount of happiness. And I must definitely strive for it because it is my rightful claim. Well, maybe, maybe not. We can just assume that, but that does not mean it's true. In this purport, a very important point is made by the bull, that one may forget all the misdeeds that we have done in the past. And the argument of the atheist is that therefore we should not be punished for them. But the devotee understands that whether or not you remember does not change the reality of the situation. This is why Krishna says to Arjun, Bahu nime vyatittani janmani tava charjana tanyaham veda sarvani natu vetta parantapa. Many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. The fact that we cannot process the equation, process all the factors because we've forgotten them, does not change the outcome. The Supersoul is the permanent witness, as explained in the purport. He knows everything. The reality of the world remains the way it is. The reality of our interactions in this life and the past life remain exactly the same, regardless of the frame of mind we happen to be in today. So in 2021, one of the things that will be very beneficial to all of us is to focus on substance and not propaganda. What is the underlying reality of a situation? We should act on the basis of an underlying reality, not on the basis of a propaganda, not on the basis of the materialist propaganda that work hard, results will come, you will enjoy. Or the lazy person's propaganda. Just relax, don't do anything. Happiness will come automatically, distress will come automatically. Another type of propaganda. Better we consider that there is something very substantial that's happened, that is happening, will continue to happen, that will create situations for us in this world. That is under the control of Krishna. Our task is not to question the situations. Everyone's been questioning so many things this year. It didn't achieve anything. The result, the conclusion was out of our questioning power and our power to answer it. Better we learn to navigate. We can't demand that when you're sailing, why is this wave coming? Let me alter this wave. You can meditate like that if you like, but it's not going to change. The waves are far more powerful than your puny little ship, even if it may be grand like the Titanic. A few waves, a little bit of ice, finished. Better you learn how to navigate it. So when these disasters come, when troublesome situations come, even when opportunities come that may potentially bewilder us or give us cause for upliftment or even trouble, better we learn how to navigate those things. And that is the purpose of spiritual life. Here, Dharma the bull is stating, how can we possibly understand what has happened? There are some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, or know it by imagination, nor express it by words. And in the previous verses, he gave many other philosophies by which people make sense of the world. Some philosophers declare that one's own self is responsible. Others say superhuman powers are responsible. Others say activity is responsible. A spectrum of options he's given to Maharaj Parikshit. The ultimate conclusion is, each philosopher can speculate what they think is the cause. We can spend our whole life wondering, why did this happen? Why is it going to happen? And what can I do to stop it happening? That's the Karmakanda process. How do I stop it happening? A devotee, a mature devotee, is not concerned with either of those. A devotee thinks, my aim is to render maximum service to Krishna with every moment I have. How do I navigate a dreadful tragedy to do that? How do I navigate a wonderful, opulent, enlivening, flourishing situation to do that? Do we have the strength of mind to consider both of these equally? That's a meditation we can think of, focusing on the substance, not on the show. So 2021 is awaiting us. There are many things that will happen, many things that can happen. Our goal is to serve Krishna. So it will be helpful to think, in what ways will I try to serve Krishna? Rather than measuring our goal in terms of the activity performed, let's try and develop a package by which we will navigate our way in this world. Let's consider, to what extent did I think about and meditate on the service of the Lord each day? It doesn't matter whether the particular service you wanted was fulfilled. You may have had a goal, I will distribute 10 books. You may have had a marathon goal, we will distribute 2 million books. Whatever it is, the ultimate goal is absolutely not in our power, the achievement of that goal. Think though, did I slip at any point in my determination to serve Krishna? That's something that's in our control. Did I waver in my determination? Was there a moment when I thought, oh, I've had enough of this, let me stop, let me just take a break, let me relax? That's something that's in our control. Was there something I could do for my spiritual life to deal with the issues I keep facing again and again and again? Was there something I could have tried? What will I do to move forward? These are useful things to consider as part of a package of bringing out substance rather than external show. Substance means our underlying adhikar, our underlying progress, our underlying mentality and attitude. Krishna knows exactly how we approach him. And Krishna knows what our motivations are as we try to render service. He doesn't need us to describe how well we thought we did. And then the extended version of that, where you have a group where each person pats each other on the back and convinces them how well they've done. Could be in any scenario. Back-patting scenarios. There are numerous such occasions. Does any of that make any difference? It doesn't make any difference because it's not substance. You can congratulate yourself and you can congratulate 20 other people that you did something good. Is that sufficient? Or was it particularly useful? So ultimately, whether you did something good or not is Krishna's perception. And if you spent half an hour just convincing yourself that you did something good, that's a half an hour you wasted not focusing on the substance, not focusing on increasing the substance of your offering to Krishna. The substance of the offering is rarely detected by any person. It can be detected by advanced devotees. There are many, many advanced devotees. They can detect the substance of our offering. They won't detect the name, fame, reputation that goes with the offerings certain people may produce. But Krishna knows what each person has done. And it requires humility to be centered on substance rather than propaganda. It requires a lot of humility. Because it means typically that when you focus on substance, you will not be patted on the back a lot. Because most people will not even detect what you're doing. But Krishna knows. You may be undergoing all sorts of austerities, working on your challenges, thinking what to do for the Lord, how to do it, and no one will know about it. You may even get derisory remarks coming your way. If you embark on this path, are you ready for it? Are you brave enough for that challenge? Often the thought of now taking this step and doing something which is not recognized, not fashionable, not even noticed by people, is something we tend not to do. We tend to gravitate towards things that someone, our system, our association will give us some reward for. So if 2021 is to be truly successful and we are to approach it with a spiritual viewpoint, let's put the rewards, the metrics, the goals, the measurement to one side. Not in the limelight anymore. Put it in the background. For short-term tasks, for short-term items, in order to encourage your focus, it is sometimes handy to use goals, metrics, etc. It is handy to do that. If you have to complete a task for Krishna, it can be useful to have goals and metrics. But let's not think that a strategic plan for our life is useful beyond the plan to please Krishna and to work according to his desire at every moment. That is much more useful and much more difficult. And it requires utsahan nishchayat dhairyat, eagerness, patience. Dhairyat is one of the most important things. When we're engaged in increasing our substance, that requires a lot of patience. But ultimately, that substance is what succeeds. So Prahlad Maharaj says, Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmani Vedanam Iti Pumsarpita Vishnu Bhaktischanna Valakshana Kriyeta Bhagavatya Dha Tanmanye Dhitam Uttamam. That these 9 processes, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing about the Lord, chanting the Lord's glories, remembering the Lord, offering him prayers, rendering service to his lotus feet, worshipping him, relating to him as a friend, and surrendering everything we have with mind, words, intelligence, body, Atmani Vedanam. These constitute pure devotional service. This is what Prahlad Maharaj says. One who has dedicated himself to practicing these 9 items is actually considered to be the most learned person, for he has understood the complete truth. These 9 processes constitute substance. They constitute where our effort, where our full attention should be. Anything else is simply a distraction. If 2021 can be the year of substance, and we can try at every day to chant more, to read more, to remember the Lord more, to worship his lotus feet even more, to try to surrender our body, mind and words, that will be a 2021 which will be unlimitedly successful, regardless of what happens in the material world. There is no point immersing ourselves in the sorrows and joys of this world. We are in this world already, and we've been trying to control it and manipulate it life after life. let's now try to make some progress in the real world. The real world is the spiritual realm of service to Krishna. If we put our efforts into serving Krishna, then we will actually be very successful, and we will actually be able to bring that success to all others. So let's look forward to 2021. Do you have any comments, questions, any suggestions? Yes, Mataji?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you very much for an absolutely brilliant class. We are so fortunate to have started our year with your wonderful inspiration. It's not a question, but if you can give some spiritual advice on, you said that as devotees, yes, we're engaged in our service, and sometimes we do get pats on our back, and as devotees, we want to glorify other devotees. But what happens is when somebody comes to glorify yourself, then you want to escape, and you don't, because of the false ego, you don't want it to foster your false ego. So how do you deal with that? What's your advice? How do you glorify, keep encouraging each other at the same time? Don't take that glorification to your head.
Yes. It is nice to glorify devotees when you genuinely appreciate their greatness. We can look at every single devotee, senior, junior, and genuinely appreciate, at least on a very basic level, it's not basic at all, but it's a base level, that this person has wanted to come to Krishna. That you could call a base level of Krishna consciousness. They wanted to come to Krishna. Never mind what they wanted, what the extent of what they wanted to offer him, whatever advancement or advanced thought they had in approaching him. Base level is this person tried to come to Krishna. How glorious they are. So there should be a natural sense of great gratitude and great happiness whenever we see any devotee. Even if during the course of events we may argue with them, we may fight with them, we may disagree with them, we may not like something they've done, all in the aim of just us exercising our material conditioning, which has to eventually go, but until it's gone, it's going to be exercised. Or in the process of trying to enhance our service. Underlying it, there has to be this fundamental appreciation of devotees. So there's nothing wrong whatsoever in feeling a desire to glorify devotees. It should be our natural state. It's not so much a concern of ours as to how the other devotee receives it. Now, sometimes when you're dealing with a junior, or you're dealing with someone who is in a capacity that you are responsible for their progress, you might moderate what you say so that the person doesn't get puffed up, if you feel that's a risk for them. But for devotees in general, that's not typically our consideration. Our consideration shouldn't be, I'll just make some curt remark to you, because if I said anything nice, then you might get puffed up. That doesn't create a very nice community, a very nice situation. We should have a desire to glorify devotees. The onus and the difficulty is all on the receiving side. Because as you mentioned, what do? We have a distaste for receiving praise. Well, you only have a distaste if you're somewhat spiritually advanced, or you somewhat want to make spiritual advancement, because most people love it. They love it when they receive praise. They're over the moon. A devotee, first of all, can be happy that the other person's offered praise. It doesn't have to be something of great resentment. Oh no, Ram Lakshman said something nice about me today, which doesn't often happen anyway, but just assuming he did. Ram Lakshman said something nice to me. Oh, I wish you would stop immediately. I wish you would stop. What a horrible person he is. That's not a good mentality. Rather better to think, he found something that he liked in me. All credit to Krishna. All credit to my Guru Maharaj. If there was something good that someone detected in something I did, or in some way that they benefited from my existence, All credit to my Guru Maharaj. All credit to Krishna. Thank you for allowing me to fulfill that role. That way, you don't take credit for it. You also don't disrespect the sincere intentions of another person. With maturity, you can detect when someone is trying to flatter you and when someone genuinely is trying to please you. There is no shortage of flattery. Flattery is often carried out for the purpose of extracting something further from the person. We all know how it works in the material world. You pat my back, I'll pat yours, butter me up, and I'll do anything for you. A devotee is not bewildered by such things. So even when a devotee is on the receiving end of some flattery or some motivated praise, let's say, a devotee internally has disinterest. But a genuine, sincere praise, a genuine, sincere feeling, just a heartfelt expression, is very much appreciated by a person who receives it. So with that way we can maintain a respectful and a joyful attitude towards that whole culture of receiving praise, glorifying others. But then we also will stop ourselves being affected by it when we just attribute it all back to the parampara and Krishna. That's what I would suggest.
Thank you. Can I just ask one more question? Is there a subtle ego when we say that, when we tribute everything back to Krishna? Because as devotees, we do that all the time.
I missed a subtle?
Is there a subtle ego?
Ego.
That comes when we also, we, like you said, that we say, it's not me, it's Krishna.
It depends how it's done. It very rarely happens when you internally offer something to Krishna. The ego part comes typically when you're looking for praise. There is ego in the spiritual world. We are accustomed to false ego. But ego exists. Ego means identity. And our identity is that we are a servant of the Lord. And we should be very happy about that situation. We should not be hiding from the idea of my identity as a servant of the Lord. That's a very nice identity to have. That's an ego that we want. So when we offer something to Krishna, the only person who knows about it is Krishna and us. There's no ego involved there. What can happen though, is sometimes if you're in a group with people and someone praises you, and then just to say the right thing, you say, oh, it's all the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, all Krishna, whatever I've tried to do, please accept me. There could well be a subtle component of, I want everyone around me to notice just how humble I am. When actually I really liked it, Please keep it coming, I really liked it. But because this is what I have to do, I'm now going to publicly say it's for Krishna. So don't say it publicly. Then there's no danger. Thank you. Prajan Prabhu?
I was just thinking, Bhagavad Gita, it says, I am the ability of man.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately, any question of you doing is completely taken. Sorry. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita...
Switch it on, please. Yeah.
Krishna says...
Oh. It's just gone off again. Mm.
And once we know that, it's not a question.
So Krishna says, I am the ability in man.
Sorry, Krishna says, I am the ability in man in the Bhagavad Gita. So where is the question of we're the doer? But actually, we're but an instrument in that way, yes, if we want to be. And it's based on this a thing. And then there's the other one that says, don't take shelter of the results of your activities. Mm. And but there's one thing we can take shelter of, is devotional service, not the result.
Yes.
And that's the real shelter.
Yes.
If we've got devotional service, it's the only shelter actually.
Yes.
So is different. Results is just that's Krishna, isn't it? At the end of the day, you know. So.
Actually, the gopis are the best example for this, and also the queens of Dwarka, and in the Vaikuntha planets, the Lakshmis who are serving Krishna. It said there's hardly any dust, but they're constantly engaged in sweeping and serving. there's hardly any dust. It's the supreme spiritual world, but they're serving. They're not thinking, today I'll clean the house. Today I'll make a garland for Krishna, and that'll be the end of it. They're thinking, how can I serve Krishna? Which means tomorrow comes. They think, oh, I'm going to make a new garland for Krishna. Oh, I better make sure that this place is clean. I better make this item for Krishna. I better try to please Krishna in this way. Even if you may have tried the same thing yesterday, the day before that. It's not completed. Task is not completed. It's not, Krishna wanted ABC from me. I've done ABC, now leave me alone. It's, what can I do more for you now today, Krishna? How can I serve you? And there becomes and with those advanced persons, there becomes a sort of state of, well, there isn't actually anything to do, so let me think of what to do. That's a more advanced stage. So when our acharyas, when Prabhupada comes to this world, he creates opportunities for us to serve. He creates situations that give us a chance to serve. Because we know Krishna doesn't need it, he's not requiring us to do anything, but he gives us a chance. He gives us a temple room to clean. He gives us the Lord to worship. He gives us people to try to preach to. He gives us so many opportunities to try to do something. That's the mercy of the spiritual master who creates the opportunity for service, which the residents of Goloka, the residents of Vaikuntha, do naturally, spontaneously anyway. They're thinking how to create a service for Krishna. What will I do for Krishna now? Done everything that was required, now what do I do for him? That's special. So as Prayojan Prabhu says, service is the goal in one sense, not the goal. Any other points? Yes, Ram Lakshman Prabhu?
Firstly, I would like to glorify you.
Oh no. Is that the right thing to say? I think I need to work on my own responses.
But I really liked how you connected this verse and it being the first day of the new year, and how people have mentalities of making goals. Just for my own clarification, I always think of, yes, it's important to have goals, and even in spiritual life to have goals, as we have the long-term goal of going back to Godhead. And part of that is to please the Lord, and so on and so on. But something that you said, I was just hoping to get clarification on. Is it that you're saying that we shouldn't, once we become mature and advanced, it's not that we're focusing on the outcome so much, but it's the inner mood. And I was thinking of the South Indian Brahmin, I think it was the South Indian Brahmin, who was instructed to read the Bhagavad Gita, but he was illiterate. And so he was given a task by his spiritual master.
Yes.
And even though it was measurable, it was accurate, and so on and so on, 18 chapters. And it wasn't something that he could achieve, but he had that right mood to stick to his Guru Maharaj's instruction. And although the outcome could have been that he should complete reading 18 chapters, but it had a different result, which was to attract the mercy of the Lord.
Yes.
So is that how we should see it, is that we're not looking for tangible outcomes, but to develop a mood to that would help us come closer to Krishna, or to serve our spiritual masters, and so on and so on.
Yes, exactly. I'm just remembering something that I think His Holiness Bhaktitirtha Maharaj said once. He said, Krishna consciousness is absolutely amazing, but it will be absolutely nothing like you thought it would be. It's going to be absolutely amazing, but it's going to be completely different to what you thought. Which always stuck with me because it's very interesting that we have an idea that you engage in an activity and there's going to be a certain outcome. And it's not always the case. The outcome can be something quite different. There are many occasions when Prabhupada encouraged his disciples to do some project. And the project itself sometimes didn't work out, went wrong. Many other things happened along the way. And in some sense, by Krishna's will, those things ended up being the real success, not whether the original thing was ticked off. So it's very interesting that you can try to come up with a plan, and especially when you have to work cooperatively with many people, it can be nice to manage it nicely. But you always have to bear in mind that what we're doing is taking the devotional energy and the devotional goodwill of all these devotees, inspired by Krishna, the Guru Parampara and Prabhupada, and we're trying to use it to create Krishna consciousness, auspiciousness in the world. Now, exactly what the result is, you just don't know. You don't know that one project you do, one function that you may put on for people, may actually just affect one tiny, insignificant person sitting in the back row. You may get praise from everyone else in the whole audience. Much praise may come, rewards, whatever it is, may come. They may be happy, satisfied. But the actual success of that program could have been this one insignificant person sitting on the back row, who will actually make an in-depth attempt to transform their lives going forward. And Krishna may see that as the real success. So what actually transpires is absolutely not the complete indicator of the success. So always very, very useful to just keep a completely open mind, that all I'm doing to Krishna, all I'm doing for Krishna is supplying my effort, supplying, as Prajan Prabhu said, service. What actually happens with that? And when you're dealing with the devotional energy, the options as to what is possible are completely unlimited. There's one, you can try to preach to someone, and something completely unexpected could happen. Some random person could walk in, hear one word, go off, do something unexpected. Anything can happen. You have no idea. Just by actually connecting ourselves with Krishna consciousness, the whole ether becomes altered. The whole atmosphere becomes purified, as Prabhupada says. The whole situation changes. So you never know what's actually happening. So best to be rather detached from it, but not at all detached from serving. That's what I would say. Any other? And thank you for your compliments. I'm putting into practice now. Okay? Happy New Year. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.